We're going to be doing a deep dive today about the house flipping process from the very beginning to the very end. So I have 13 steps for this house flipping process from beginning to end, and I am not going to wait any longer. Number one is education. Okay, education, understanding the different types of flips. There's wholesales, there's retails, there's bird deals. There's many different types of flips, and you've got to understand the differences of those, wholesale, retail. We also want to talk about how hard money works. If you're not familiar with how the loan works, how the money works, those types of things, you can get yourself in some trouble. You also need to learn how to value properties. The proper way to value properties can make a world of difference. Then you need to know how much you can pay for a property, because if I know the property's worth $300,000, how much can I really pay for that property? And that includes how much work needs to be done to the property. So that's number one, is this education. There's a lot that goes into that, and that's where you need to start. Second thing you need to do is you need to line up hard money. You need to find a lender that will lend you the purchase and some or all of the rehab money. That's not easy to do. So you've got to find somebody that's willing to do that. And I put together some questions that you need to ask a hard money lender to make sure you're working with the right person. Like, what loan to value do you lend to? Is that as is value, or is that after repaired value, or ARV? Will you lend up to 100% of the purchase if it is under that loan to value? Will you lend up to 100% of the purchase and the rehab money if it's under that loan to value, meaning I found a really, really good deal? Do you require monthly payments? Do you care about credit score? These are all questions you need to be asking anybody you're thinking about working with as a hard money lender. Then the other thing is you need to get pre-approved with the lender. Understand what properties they are willing to lend on, what properties they aren't willing to lend on, so that you can know if it's a property and it meets their criteria, you're gonna have a great chance of that deal closing. Okay, step number 3 in this A to Z is finding properties. Next, you've got to figure out how you're going to actually find a property so that you can make some money on that. And so what you do is you create a new property roadmap. This is basically reverse engineering your success. In the end, if you want to find a profitable deal, you need to find out how many contacts you need to make, how many offers you need to make, how many seller appointments you need to go on, how many prospects you need to talk to, how many conversations you need to have, how many leads you need to get. When you do that, you can reverse engineer your success. And what you want to do is map that out. How to identify those properties, how much time you're going to spend driving, how much time you're going to spend calling, how many hours per week, how many weeks it will take you to actually find a deal. And then if you have that mapped out and reversed engineered your success, statistically, if you do these activities every week, at the end, you're going to end up with a property. And what I find is most people think it's super easy to find a property. And no, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And you've got to have some consistency to make that happen. So identify the area you should be investing in, because you want to go where most of the flips are actually happening. So to do that, you need to get some area information. And that starts with statistics, understanding the price growth and the days on market, the average month's rents, the listing versus the sales price, the days on market. Those are all things you want to be looking at, the listing trend, the sales trends, to make some determinations as to which zip codes or which counties should you be investing in. The next thing is do some analytics, by the area, and getting some heat maps so that you can understand where you want to be investing. And then we start this targeted list. We do some mashup lists. For example, we do like out-of-state owners of single-family houses, less than $500,000, but more than $100,000 with more than $50,000 worth of equity. Those are people we actually want to be going after, as long as they are not listed on the multiple listing services. That's a great list we want to be targeting. But one of my favorite ways of finding properties is called driving for dollars, where you drive and you find distressed properties. You tag these properties saying this is a property that I'm concerned about, and then you start moving into the next phase, which is phase 4, where we start getting into marketing. Okay, so marketing is the whole thing of getting in touch with somebody that may have some interest. And so you found some opportunities, either driving for dollars or you put some mashup lists together. Now we need to talk to them. So how will you talk with them, right? So you can skip trace and you can get their phone number, and then you can call them. You can set that up in a phone dialer, and then you can also send some postcards to them, or you could only send postcards to them, or you can make calls. Personally, I like making calls. That's my recommendation to everyone. Also, you could knock on the doors and say, hey, are you interested in selling your property? Is something get ready for a lot of rejection is probably what I should say, because it takes a lot of work to find the right person that's willing to sell the property that's going to work for everyone. Step 5, we start talking to the seller. So we've identified, we've reverse engineered we've done our education, we've found our hard money lender, we've reverse engineered our success. We've gone out there and we started to find properties through mashups or through driving for dollars. And now we're saying, now we gotta actually talk to these guys, okay? So what do you say to somebody when they call you? What do you say if they're upset? What do you say if they're interested? Those are the types of things you've got to know and you've got to understand with this. And so I like to say, hey, my name's Ryan. I'm calling about 123 Main Street. Wonder if you'd have some interest in selling it. If they're upset, you say, hey, I'm really sorry. If they're not interested, I say, do you know anybody else that's interested in selling a property? Or do you have any others you'd be interested in selling? So I always like to end with that. So now we jump into step number 6, which is actually valuing the properties. Because if you don't know what the property's worth, you can get yourself in big trouble really fast. And so we need to know how to value this property. What will this property sell for once fixed up? What is it worth as is? How much will it wholesale for? Those are things we need to know. How do I pull comps? What is a good comp? What isn't a good comp? How do I make adjustments when I'm dealing with situations with extra bedrooms or extra bathrooms? Those are all things that you need to know. What should I pay for this property also goes into consideration as we talk about this as well. Next, offering and negotiating is going to be step 7. So now we've talked to somebody, they have some interest. What do you offer them? How much negotiation? How do you negotiate? How do you do the paperwork? What contracts you are going to need to make this happen are all things you've got to understand and know so you be successful. And one of the things we've done is put an advanced deal analysis software together to help you solve these things because it can get a little complicated. Step number 8 is scoping the property. Now, let's say the seller said, yes, I want to sell, and you guys have came to an agreement. You've got the right contracts. Now you've got to scope and do the bids. And what scope basically means is understanding the work that needs to be done on the property. And so whether that's doing a BRRRR deal or you're reselling the property, you need to know how to find great contractors. You need to know how to get bids from those contractors. You need to know how to work with multiple contractors. Those all are included in that. And then we get into step number 9, which is going to be the inspections, okay? Do you need a structural engineer? Do you need an electrical inspection? Those are all things you need to be asking yourself, so additional inspections need to be made prior to the time you purchase the property so that if there is a problem, you're gonna know about it and can renegotiate with the seller or make the decision it's worth doing anyway, or walk away from the deal if that is the best thing for you to do as well. You've got to have those options. And then we get into vetting the contractor. And again, this needs to happen before you buy the property because we want to make sure the contractor's good. We want to make sure they know what they're doing. We want to make sure they've done similar jobs. We want to make sure they have a track record. We want to make sure they're licensed. We want to make sure they have lines of credit, those types of things. And I've actually put an entire training together on how to properly vet a contractor. You can check that out on YouTube. Do Hard Money, how to properly vet a contractor. Well worth your time. So with contractors, how long have they been in business? Do they have references? Do they have lines of credit with supply houses? Those are all things we've got to take into consideration. Okay, step number 9, processing and closing. Processing and closing, once we've gotten through all these things, that's where we're getting our hazard insurance and our title insurance. We're doing our loan applications, getting our termite inspections. We're getting all the documents that are necessary to have this closing actually happen, our purchase contract. And then we actually close on the loan. We get everything, the hard money lender, they get everything approved, and we actually have the loan closing. That's where we're getting to in this point. Now, step number 12 is construction management. Now we've got the money, we've closed on it. Now we've got to make sure the work actually gets done. We've got our scope of work, we've vetted our contractor, and so we've got to manage this. We've got to put a weekly schedule together of work. We've got to be at the property at least weekly for those inspections. We've got to turn in draws so the lender can make those contractors actually get paid. We've got to get the work done. We've got to resolve the problems as they actually come in. And step number 13, which is our final step in this whole process, is listing and reselling the property. This is how we're actually getting our payday. So we've got to interview and identify great agents. We've got to get the property listed. We have to have professional pictures throughout the property and determine, does this property need to get staged or not? We need to be doing regular price reductions, and we need to put that property under contract on the resale when we're reselling that property, and also knowing what fees we're going to have in selling that property when it comes time for the resale. So all of that comes into this, and then we actually have our resale closing. So these are the 13 steps of house flipping from beginning to end. Let's recap them all now. Number 1, there's education. Number 2 is hard money, knowing who's going to lend you the money. Number 3 is finding the properties. Number 4 is marketing to the owners of these properties. Number 5 is talking to the sellers. Number 6 is valuing these properties. Number 7 is offering and negotiating. Number 8 is the scope and the bid, so you know what's going to be happening for the construction. Number 9 is inspections to make sure there's nothing on the property you didn't know about. Number 10 is vetting the contractor. Number 11 is processing and closing the property. Number 12 is the construction project management. And number 13 is listing and reselling the property. These are the 13 steps for you to have a successful real estate fix and flip from beginning to end.